This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
All right, so welcome to my mock draft this week. As you guys know, I like to do mock drafts a bit differently. I don't view mock drafts as a predictive exercise. What that means is that if you're expecting me to try to predict what's going to happen in the draft, that is not what's going to go down here, right? I view them as a exercise, a challenge. And part of the challenge is setting up different scenarios to see if you were in a situation and these options were available to you. What would you do in that situation? So, sometimes people get kind of hyper fixated on, oh, they're picking at 10, but they don't think a player is going to be there at 10. I don't do that because the draft has been proven to be random enough that you know that things you don't expect to happen will happen. And that's what the mock draft is meant to do. The mock draft is meant to try to prepare teams. And that's what the original purpose of the mock draft was to try to prepare teams for situations that might come up that they're not expecting. So they can run through what they think about it so that if it does pop up, they're not taking up the whole time on the clock. So that's how I choose to operate with mock drafts. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, that player's not going to be available at this spot. I'm just going to go with what the machine says is available. And then I'm going to make decisions based on what I have set up in the scenario. So for this scenario, we have done free agency. Now, what I have focused the free agency on for this mock draft scenario is the offensive line. So here is what I have done. So far with this scenario, the Browns would have about $30 million in cap space left over to start the season. Their outright free agent signings would be Rasheed Walker, left tackle from the Green Bay Packers. You would sign him on about a $24 million per year deal over 3 years. You could spread that number out over time and make it so that the first year really only hits for about 14 on the cap. And that's just a basic structure of it. There are much more intricate ways of structuring the contract that could make it happen. So Isaac Seumalo, Rasheed Walker. So you would bring in somebody to compete at starting guard. You would bring in somebody to be the left tackle for the team. Connor McGovern, a center from the Buffalo Bills, would also be there. So right there, 3 starters in free agency in the offensive line, a significant portion of the free agency bill going into, 2 guys who are short-term solutions while you wait to draft guys in the upcoming years. And then Rasheed Walker should be your long-term solution at one of your tackle positions. You would bring back Mahmoud Diabate on a minimum deal. Same thing with Martin Emerson on a minimum deal. The guys I would bring back, the exclusive right free agents, Ronnie Hickman would be brought back on a tender. Malachi Corley, exclusive rights. Brendan Bates, exclusive rights. Rex Sunahara, exclusive rights. Winston Reed and Andre Schmidt. So those guys being brought back. Sam Webb, restructuring Deshaun, restructuring Denzel, restructuring Miles, letting Joe Bitonio walk, and then David Njoku, letting him walk as well. That frees up cap space. I would, in this scenario, bring back Wyatt Teller because, again, he's about that age and that level of player you would bring back because he's already going to be on the salary cap for this year because of his void years. You can give him something like $6 million over the next 2 years, but that only increase your cap number this year by like $2 million. So if you can do that, I know Wyatt and his wife had an issue with Cleveland at the end of the season, but if you can smooth that thing over, which I think it's possible, we're all professionals and adults here, you'd be able to save some money here, have a veteran right guard here, Maybe Wyatt leaves and he goes to Kevin out there in Atlanta, but from what I hear, I think his beef was with Kevin. So don't really know with Wyatt. But if you can bring back Wyatt, you can bring back Wyatt. You'll be cutting Ethan Posick, probably cut Luke Whippler as well. Devin Bush, you're bringing him back on about a $5 million over 2 deal, so 2 years, $5 million, about 10 over 2. Tevin Jenkins, you would bring him back on a minimum deal as well. And that's kind of the free agency picture here for this scenario with the Browns. It's fully focused on the offensive line here. Now, you might see a name here, Brian Thomas Jr. That brings me to the second part of this scenario. See, the Browns are going to have to do something at wide receiver, or at least you would want the Browns to do something at wide receiver. There are going to be a few options available to them, all with varying price points. You could take a flyer, only give up about a fifth or a sixth for Brandon Ayuk, but that comes with significantly less security. Brandon Ayuk's coming off a knee injury. Brandon Ayuk had issues with his last team. No guarantee that that works out great for you if you go trade for Brandon Ayuk. You could go with something more secure, like Brian Thomas Jr. But if you want Brian Thomas Jr., from everything that I've seen, it's probably going to cost you a second-round pick in some capacity. You're probably going to have to give up a second-round pick. Either this year or next year, you're going to have to give up a second-round pick. You would probably want to give it up this year because you have the extra first this year. So Brian Thomas Jr. would cost a second-round pick. Are you willing to spend a second-round pick to get Brian Thomas Jr.? Probably a day 3 pick as well, but that's another question you got to answer there. You could go for somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, the upside on him is about as high as anybody that you could trade for, but that means you're going to have to give up a first. So the question is, hey, how aggressive do you want to be in going after wide receiver, especially when you don't have a real answer at quarterback, right? And some people might say, hey, since you don't have a real answer, you might want to be more aggressive. I would look at it differently. You don't have a quarterback, which means you don't have a great way of delivering the ball to an expensive wide receiver, right? Which means you're not guaranteed to get that level of production out of them. It goes both ways. It's a double-edged sword, right? So having a quarterback, I think, would make it easier to just bite the bullet and go Brian Thomas Jr. for a second-round pick. It's probably the sweet spot for me if you want to trade for a wide receiver. But not having a real way of delivering the ball to Brian Thomas, it does make me a little nervous. But let's say you hire Grant Udesky. You make the move. You go for Brian Thomas Jr. for a second-round pick and then let's say a fifth. We'll throw that in there. What does the mock draft look like then? If that is what you did in free agency, a heavy investment in the offensive line and then a pretty significant investment at wide receiver before we make a single draft pick so that the Browns aren't going into this draft with a bunch of needs. What does that mock draft then look like? How does that change what the Cleveland Browns are going to do? We're going to find out. Let me thank my sponsor today, Fanatics. So, look, if you know anything about me, you know that I am a self-proclaimed and unashamed sports nerd. And that means a lot of things. That means I love the data around sports. I love watching sports. I love breaking down sports. I love learning more about sports. Fun fact, I got gifted a sports almanac when I was a kid for Christmas, and I used to read that sports almanac for fun. Now, to be fair to me, this is before everybody had like high-speed internet at their house and had better things to do, but I did used to read that. I would love sports cards, baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards. I would love to get them and just find out obscure information about obscure players or even just fun information about big time players that you might have not known if you didn't look hard enough at the data. And that's why I want to talk about my sponsor for today's video, Fanatics Live. Fanatics Live is the most fun way to start collecting sports cards. It's a 24-hour live streaming app where fans buy and rip packs together with on-screen hosts guiding the action. There are two main ways to play: instant rips, where you buy a digital pack on screen. The host rips it live, revealing a physical graded card. You can instantly sell it back to the app for credit, about 90% of market value, or ship it to your house. There's also breaks. Instead of buying a whole box, you could buy a spot, usually assigned to a specific team. And when the host opens the box, you win every card pulled for your team. Here's me opening up my first pack on Fanatics. Okay. Host's about to open up my pack. Let's see what I got here. All right. Let's see what I'm getting. Oh, Steph Curry. All right. That's cool. You get like the 3D thing, and you get to go into the app. And if you go into the app, you can actually see like the kind of close up of it. That's really cool. You can even read the back. Look at this. This is really cool. Steph Curry. All right. The best place to start is Fanatics Live. It's the easiest way to start collecting, even if you are a beginner. With instant grips, every pack has a professionally graded card inside. You see the floor and the ceiling value of the pack before you buy. And then once the card is revealed, it appears instantly in your collection tab. And in there, you can decide what you want to do with your card. You can keep it, ship it, or sell it instantly for credit to keep ripping. There's a variety of cards you could pull on this app. You could do NFL, NBA, MLB, and even Pokemon for you freaks out there. New users get a free instant rip pack with a graded card inside to try out. Click the link in the description to download the app and join your first stream to get yours. All right, so that's the trade for Brian Thomas Jr. We would offer that trade up. They accept it. We move up in this draft a little bit. We get Brian Thomas Jr. They get our second round pick, and we get an extra for our troubles as well. So that is the trade for Brian Thomas Jr. So again, the Browns going into this with a heavy investment at offensive line and free agency, and going after somebody who could take over that wide receiver one role for the Cleveland Browns for Grant Udesky. So how does that change what the Browns do in the draft? Let's see what happens here. All right, so the first 5 picks of the draft go Fernando Mendoza, Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain, Jordan Tyson, and Arvell Reese. So we're sitting here, and if you're the Browns, this board right here, looking the way it does, feels like a trade back if you can get before. Who's a real threat? Maybe you want to stay back before Kansas City. How many wide receivers before we go to the second tier? You got Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon. So I would say it's tier 1. I don't know how I feel about Denzel Boston yet, but I would say these two are tier 1. You can also look at some other positions here, right? There's Ty Simpson here. If you want to go quarterback, tight end. Don't really see the Browns going tight end in the first round. Offensive tackle, you got Spencer Fano, Francis Mauiga. I got to pronounce his name properly. You got Big Francis here, Caden Proctor, Caleb Lomu, Monroe Freeling. So you got some tackle prospects here. Interior. You got Yoni here. So you got some interesting names if you move back. Let's see what the offers are. Let's see what people are offering. Right now it's what? The Eagles at 23. That's a lot. That's moving back a lot. That means our first pick is going to be right before 24. That would be a lot. Do I just want to go and grab Mekhi Lemon? Let me see what I could pull out of them. So 23 for 24. Do they give me a future first? No. Oh no, 23 for 6. They give me their first next year and maybe their second this year. Is it worth it? Because that's basically a third and a second to move back a lot of spots. I don't know if I like that. You know, what's the trajectory of Philly going forward, right? Like, is Philly going to be a bad team next year? Probably not. Are they going to win the Super Bowl next year? Probably not. Again, if this is what's available to you, right? A trade back from 22, 23, 32, and 34. You could take Mekhi Lemon here or Carnell Tate. I do think that if we're looking at what Grant likes, and we're assuming that Grant's the coach, again, this scenario, we're just going to assume that just so we have something to work with. Mekhi Lemon fits the bill of what he's liked, right? A playmaker at wide receiver. But you've also went after Brian Thomas Jr. You could say to yourself, well, you could do the same thing with Brian Thomas Jr. and Jerry Jeudy. Hopefully Brian Thomas takes some pressure off of Jerry. Maybe you want to go out and get a veteran after the draft. But yeah, is there really a room for another wide receiver prospect when you just traded a lot to go after Brian Thomas Jr.? So if you're not going to go Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate here, right, the best two prospects here are probably wide receivers, then we're probably looking at trading back. Let's see how much we can get out of them. If they want 6, they give us a first next year and a second this year. How about this? No, I want the first next year. And then I want this to be moved up from 107. They're not going for that? Okay. Let's see what else we could work out. How about 144 and then swapping from 98 to 144? And then we'll swap 147 for 151. And then I'll give you 248 or 205. I'll give you 205 in a Houston 5th. Now I'm giving up too much. Now, how about this? Eagles would like to do a first this year, a first next year, 68 and 98. And then I can give him 6 and 144. I want 54. I want to be a little bit more aggressive here. So I want pick 54. Because I do think those 12 spots are going to matter because, like, got to still draft one wide receiver prospect. I don't know if I'm going to have that opportunity at 54. So maybe we go 44 and then I'll throw you 147. Is that good enough to get the deal done? So I feel like we're 50-50 here. This puts it slightly over 50-50. All right, they accepted the trade. So they get 6, 144, and 147, and I get 23, 54, 98 in the first next year. You guys let me know what you think about that, given what the board was, given what we've done in free agency. Again, Brian Thomas Jr. trade considered in that. Then you also have what the Browns have done on the offensive line. They would be dropping to 23, which would be pretty steep. You know, it's not going to be easy to fall all the way to 23, but that's where you would be. They move up. They want Jeremiah Love. And we will sit back here. Okay, so probably Ione is the pick here, right? We're probably going to go Ione in Lomu. I think that's the move. Get a tackle for the future, just in case. And get a guard. Let's load up that offensive line for years to come. Because, again, we replaced a lot of starters, but Connor McGovern's 33, who we signed in free agency in this scenario. Isaac Siamalu is old, and same thing with Tevin Jenkins and Wyatt Teller. So you're gonna definitely want to guard. I'm probably gonna go Ione here. Let's see what's at wide receiver. I think our options at wide receiver in the second round will be fine, right? We got that Eagle second round pick, so we got our second back. So yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and get a guard here. Let's go beef. Let's go Ione, guard from Penn State. Big guy, redshirt junior, so about 22 years old, 6'4", 328. Good pass blocker. Run blocking is fine. Gap and zone are fine. Played a little bit of left tackle this year, but mainly at left guard. Developmental prospect. Not going to need him to play right away, but if he can, awesome. Let's go him. We're the next pick up, and we're probably going to go Lomu here. Lomu, tackle prospect. Really good pass blocker. Needs a lot of work in run blocking. He's 6'6", 308 pounds, a redshirt sophomore, so he's what, 19, 20, 21 years old. So he's a couple of years away from being physically where you want him to be at to play left tackle in the NFL. But the potential is there. Good feet, right? Big paws on the pup. You take him, and he's kind of like insurance. Like, hey, if Rasheed Walker works out, which I think that will, and then you go and you get DeJuan Jones over on that right side, then you might be able to have a Lomu take over for DeJuan once his contract's up. But you're putting both these guys in a position where they can develop. They're not going to be forced to play super early, but you're giving your offensive line some long-term security by investing in it right now. Not the sexiest thing in the world, right, to go guard tackle in the first round, but I think it will be appreciated in the long run. Gotta care about the trenches. All right, let's get to this second round pick. We're waiting for 54, and then we have a little bit of a run here: 54, 70, 98, 100, 101, 205. All right, so we're at pick 54. Again, the Browns have kind of zeroed in on a lot of offensive line. We got a wide receiver. Let's see what the wide receivers are available. You got Omar Cooper, Sage Surratt, Jacoby Lane. There's going to be a little bit of a drop-off here. I think Omar Cooper's probably the better receiver out of these two from Indiana. I'm going to be honest. I believe that Indiana, those wide receivers were helped greatly by how good Mendoza was this year. The accuracy that they got from him. There's not a ton of separation here for Surratt. And if we look at like Omar Cooper, I think his problem is he drops the ball quite a bit. He gets better separation, but he drops the ball quite a bit. I like Surratt, but I don't think I like Surratt at 54. Maybe if Surratt's sitting there at 70. Cooper, same thing. If he's sitting there at 70, I might consider it. But there is a player from Indiana that I really, really like. There are a couple players here. Keontae Scott, corner here out of Miami, a redshirt senior, so older player, not really somebody that Andrew Berry goes for, but a physical corner, really good run defense grades here. Pretty solid, just played in the slot a lot, right? And he's more of that prototypical size at 6 foot, 194. And then you have the guy who I think has the best slot tape in the country in D'Angelo Pons. Now, he is undersized, 5'9", 173, but I think I'm okay with that at the slot position. Change of direction, all that stuff has to be tested. If I'm just going based on like my viewing of the college football season, not necessarily like tape and Senior Bowl, East-West, I'm probably leaning towards Pons here. So let's get D'Angelo. Let's get Pons. If you look at it, right, some people might say that's too early for a slot corner, but if we look at the way that the slot market is going, last year the Eagles in the second round drafted a slot corner in Makuba that they played at safety a lot. So I think a similar thing could happen with Pons. And I think Pons is just a good football player, and you want to just draft good football players. All right. So first round, we got Ioni, Lomu, D'Angelo Pons, and Brian Thomas Jr. Let's go. Ooh, Max Clear is available. Really like Max Clear. Had a really good season the year before he went to Ohio State. Kind of slowed down at Ohio State, but I think that's more or less because of the amount of talent there. Pretty good run block grade from Max this year. Yeah, let's go Max Clear. Let's go Max Clear here. And then we got another third round pick at pick 98. Carson Beck, Deion Burks, Danny Sutton, all right, Malachi Fields. We can start to look at, let's see, wide receiver Stribling, McAllister, Eric Rivers. Bryce Lane's interesting. FCS guy, but a really big dude, 6'3", 209. Pretty good contested catch grades, routes per route, yards per route run. The drop rate is not where you want it to be, but the receiving grade, if you care about that sort of thing, that's been fine there. Don't think North Dakota State took a FCS game this year, a FBS game, my bad, this year. So no real telling on like how he would have looked versus like a Power 5 school because we don't have that information for him. But, somebody who has some promise here that you could take around pick 90 if you want to get another body in that wide receiver room. Let's look at running back. Nick Singleton's here. I might do that at 100. I might do Nick Singleton at 100. Corner, Will Lee, Malik Muhammad, Jalen Kilgore. About safety. What do we got safety? Genesis Smith. We brought back Ronnie Hickman, so we're not really in a rush to do anything there. Defensive interior. Can't wait to go to the Senior Bowl. Oh, by the way, I'm going to the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine game this year, so I'll be able to get a wider look at more prospects this year, which is awesome. All right. Let's take the wide receiver. Let's go Bryce Lance here. Or do we want to wait on Bryce Lance and go after somebody else? I know what the board says, but just like looking at what you have here, am I more worried about somebody taking a wide receiver? Because I think Bryce Lance is the last wide receiver I would want to spend a decent draft pick on. So, yeah, I'm going to just take Bryce here, and then we'll see what works out with the other positions. All right, we're at pick 100. Chase Basantis just went, but we pretty much handled guard here, so we're fine with that. Let's go here. Yeah, let's get Nick Singleton. Let's get somebody who can return some kicks, and then we can have a three-headed monster in the backfield. Maybe even like consider moving like Dylan Sampson more to a wide receiver focus role where I think he would shine at, and then have Nick Singleton handle some carries as well. Yeah, I would probably lean towards that. How old is Nick? Senior, 21.2, so he's young. Is there anything that takes me off of Nick Singleton here? I don't think there is. Yeah, let's go Nick Singleton. All right, so let's look at the board here and see how many players are available that I would want. Again, we're super early here, so once we get to the later rounds, we're really talking about players I have not done a ton of like research on. So willing to be wrong here. We could take Kaylon Rutledge. Yeah, I'll take Kaylon. All right, we're at what, 205 here? I know Cobb's going to be pissed I didn't take Genesis Smith, but All right. So 205. Let's just speed this up because I do not care. All right. Luke Altheimer, Sawyer Robinson, Taylor Green, Cole Payton. He's a pretty athletic guy, right? Hey, let's give this guy a chance. Let's get another body in the quarterback room. It's what a 6th-round pick. Let's get Cole Payton in there. See what happens. And let's draft Harkey. Let's get Harkey in there. Yeah, let's draft Alex Harkey. All right, so that's the result of the first mock draft scenario. I'm going to be doing this on another mock draft simulator in this video, so don't worry. We're going to get another look at what the board could look like. But this is kind of an example of what we'd be doing. The Browns get Brian Thomas Jr., so they trade this year's second, a fifth this year. They get pick 100, Brian Thomas Jr., and a round 4 pick next year. They get Ione, Lomu, D'Angelo Pons, Max Clare, Bryce Lance, Nick Singleton, Kalon Rutledge, Cole Payton, Alex Harkey. So, again, this is just a heavy focus on the offensive line just because that's kind of how the board fell and what made sense. Your trenches should be good by the end of this year, right? Like, this is a heavy investment. If the Browns did this, nobody could complain that they did not try to address the offensive line. You could complain, you would just be wrong, right? Like a heavy investment in the offensive line, as heavy of an investment in the offensive line. And let's kind of put this on the board a little bit here. I'm going to try something out. This is for the first scenario, right? How things would look. Defensively, things are pretty much identical. You got your wide 9 front here, Miles, Mason, Malik Collins, Alex Wright. You got Diabite, Swesson Bush, Delpit rolling down here in this look here. And then Hickman up high, Pons, and Ward, right? So that's a pretty good defense. I think you're pretty happy with that defense. If we're looking at the Browns' offense, it changes a little bit in this scenario, right? You would probably have Cedric Tillman running a Y here in this scenario because in this kind of a formation, you're probably having that wide receiver block just to have a run option or a run fake available to you. Tackle would be Rasheed Walker, my bad. You would have Isaac Seumalo starting at guard more than likely, with Ione taking over for him as the course of the season goes on. McGovern, Teller, and then DeJuan Jones can hold down right tackle. Lomu could take the right tackle position from DeJuan Jones during the season if DeJuan Jones gets injured or struggles. If DeJuan Jones does not get injured, does not struggle, and you feel really confident about him, then Lomu could eventually replace Walker once his contract gets a little expensive in the next couple of years. So you got flexibility here with the offensive line. What in this scenario I'm hoping to build is something that is, a bit injury proof, right? Because the Browns have been killed by injuries when it comes to the offensive line here. Then you have Jerry Jeudy in the slot with Brian Thomas Johnson, Brian Thomas Jr. out here at the Z. In practice, the reason I drew this up, I got a play here from the 2021 Browns playbook right here, right? We're going to look at this play, this one right here. So I think it's like the bottom on your screen. It's kind of flipped for me. We're going to draw this play out this formation here, right? So you got Fannin on and out. Then you have Jeudy breaking off this corner. And then you have Brian Thomas Jr. That's the def is off on that one. Breaking that off a route there, right? You'll have Tillman down blocking. You have your tackle down blocking. And then running back fake, block, protect with a quarterback jetting out. If Shador is your quarterback, these are the kind of plays you're going to run a lot of because this seems to be something that Shador is comfortable doing, right? Rolling out, trying to find levels here. It's a play that the Browns have run before. This will have a bit more effectiveness, right? Because this is going to cause a bit of an exchange issue between these two corners. Now, if you're the Browns and you're looking at this from the Browns defense perspective, you feel a lot better because you're confident about both these corners in both of the situations that you would be in, right? You don't want, if you have a slot out there that you're not confident in certain spots, you're going to have to put things in to protect them, which could lead to bust. Here, Hickman would probably try to crunch in on that. Ward would probably try to play under it and try to get in between both of these routes here. And then you would have Pons chasing this, right? So I think you would probably exchange this off if you're looking there. And then Delpit would probably come down to try to run fit once he sees the block here and then try to find something to do, probably chase after the quarterback. And then you would see what everybody else kind of does in this play, usually just running over. So that's one way to look at it, right? If we want to look at what it would be if the Browns were kind of in a different personnel set there. So let's add a tight end to this formation here. Where's my red marker? Let's add a tight end to this formation. Okay, so we'll take off. We'll just call this a tight end here. Actually, he has to cover the line of scrimmage. So if we want that to be, 12P, one running back, two tight ends, you can then make this tight end Max Clare. And then you would have Claire, Fannin, Judy, Brian Thomas Jr. out there. Pretty effective, I think, if I'm being honest. Like, I think that this would be, if the Browns went into the season with these adjustments being made on offense, I don't think I would feel like it'd be a disaster. I think I would have some hope that this could work out. Would it be the best offense in the NFL? Definitely not. The fact that quarterback here is a undetermined position is a bad thing. But you can look around here and say, hey, if they get these right, if Brian Thomas Jr. is good, if Jerry Jeudy can recover from a bad year, if Max Clare or, in Lomu and Ione, and if these picks are good, and all of a sudden you can see how this could lead to a pretty good base for an offense that raises the floor for quarterback play. I have my concerns about building a team like this because when you are trying to elevate quarterback play, you end up with a team usually that has a very small margin of error. And when you have a small margin of error, it makes trying to win a championship very difficult because you got to win 4 games in a row. And you're hoping that nothing's going to break down in 4 games in a row because you don't have the quarterback to be the big eraser there. Long term, that's my big concern about building a team out like this. You know what I mean? You can put all the nice shit on a Chrysler 300 you want to, but at the end of the day, you're driving a Chrysler 300, not a Phantom, right? And that's kind of what we're building here, right? We're trying to make do with what you have and build a really nice team, but if you don't have the quarterback, that's what stops you from being a consistently elite team. But since we can't get the quarterback right now, you got to do the best with what you got, and this is the best with what you got. Let's use another mock draft simulator to see how that could change things. Now let me thank my second sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. Okay, because this mock draft simulator doesn't let you do player trades, I'm gonna have to kind of hack it. So we're gonna say I'm getting a 2nd round pick in 2027, but that is Brian Thomas Jr. This is the Brian Thomas Jr. trade. Putting that one in this machine. And again, we're going to see how this plays out based on how this board and this machine kind of behave differently. So let's get this one started. All right, so right off the bat, this one is much different, right? Because number 2 is Francis, the tackle out of Miami. Then Spencer Fano goes number 3, Ruben Bain, and then Arvell Reed. So we're sitting here at 6. Carnell Tate's there. Caleb Downs is there. Jordan Tyson is there. We're on the clock. Nobody's really calling for a trade. Remember, we traded for Brian Thomas Jr., so we don't really have a huge need at wide receiver. So if that's where we're sitting, Caleb Downs is right there. I mean, still can help score points because he's a fantastic special teamer, right? A plus return man at kick returns and punt returns. And then he's Caleb Downs as a safety. If you've already handled wide receiver, if you've already handled offensive line, if nobody is calling you to give you a great trade back offer, we got to consider it. And I'm going to do more than consider it. I'm going to take Caleb Downs in this scenario. So you take Caleb Downs. We're going to wait till pick 24. Falk, McCoy, Howe, Delaney, Tyson, Simpson goes off the board to New York. They trade up for him. Boston, Woods, Gunker. All right, so we got one trade offer for pick 24. It's Cincinnati. We're going to safely reject this offer from Cincinnati because that would be trading back into the second round. Let's see here. So we got Caleb Downs. We're looking at the prospects available. Let's go interior offensive line. There's Ione, who is probably, I think that's the last of the first round quality guards in this draft class. If we go tackle, there's Caden Proctor and Monroe Freeling. But after that, there's a pretty steep drop off. In my opinion. So, wide receiver, Casey Concepcion, Chris Bell, Surratt. I feel like we're going to go Ione here. We're going to get a guard. I feel like we're going to get a guard here, right? Somebody could step up, play some guard. Is this, again, the most sexy scenario? Will there definitely be people who complain? Yes, but again, we did a lot in free agency to solve some of the other issues with the team. I think going for somebody who could play guard for you long term helps out a ton, especially if you're putting them in a situation where they don't have to be the starter. If Ione does start right away, which you might anticipate with him being a first round pick and all, then you have a pretty good backup in Siamalu behind both of your guard positions, and this puts your offensive line much closer to being injury proof than you have for a while here. And we've seen what injuries have done to the offensive line. So we're going to go Ione here. Some of Brown's Twitter is going to hate me, but I've made my peace. All right, so we got pick 70, and then we're at 100 after that. Okay, so we're at round 3, pick 70. If we're looking at the board right now, it's Garrett Nussmeier is available. You could go Garrett Nussmeier here, right? Zach Wakee, Kamari Ramsey. Let's look around. Let's click around here. Wide receiver. Yeah, Omar Cooper here at 70 wouldn't be terrible. Keep that one in mind here. Linebacker, Jacob Rodriguez might make some sense here. Quarterback, Nussmeier, Claire's there at 70, but it's kind of a luxury pick right now. I think I would probably have to go Cooper over Claire here. Daryl Jackson. Keontae Scott is there. That is a complete luxury, though. Man, but that is a complete luxury. So I think it's coming down to Keontae Scott or Omar Cooper. I like Keontae Scott as a prospect better, but the position Cooper plays might be more useful for the Browns. Coop is a nice 50-50 ball guy, but he does not catch the ball well. I already got Cedric Tillman. Like, is Omar Cooper meaningfully different than Cedric Tillman? I would say probably not. He feels a little different because he's new, but big wide receiver, can make a spectacular catch, sometimes drops the ball. That describes Cedric Tillman. I'll go Keontae Scott here. Yeah, we're going to go to pick 100 here. Remember, the Browns need a punter in that scenario too, so I got to get a punter. We could just sign somebody on the minimum in free agency, so it's not really that big of a deal. Coop almost made it to pick 100 here. I wonder, I probably should have traded up there, because that would have probably been the move, is to trade up for Omar Cooper there. Let's see. Rutledge makes some sense here. Is Claire still there? Max Claire is still there. Mike O'Clair here. I think quarterback's off the board entirely for me now. Corner. Nick Singleton's still there, but it was a pick 100. Maybe if Nick Singleton is there at like 144, in this scenario, I consider it. Edge, safety. I'm seeing so there's Kaylon Rutledge and there's Max Claire. I'm going to go Max Claire. Let's add to that passing game. So far, they want to move up. Nah, I'm going to reject that. That's even worse. That's so much worse. What is this offer? All right. So Caleb Downs, Ione, Keontae Scott, and Max Claire. So you had that with Brian Thomas Jr. You traded for Brian Thomas Jr. You address wide receiver, tight end, corner, safety, interior offensive line. And you feel like so far in your first 100 picks, you've gotten an absolute game changer at safety and somebody who can return punts. You got Ione there, who can hopefully be your guard for the future, the replacement for Joe Bitonio in the long term. You have some vets there that can hold the spot down while you try to figure out what you're going to do with Ione. This probably means that you don't have to work anything out with Wyatt, too, if you go this way. So you can kick Wyatt off the team if you want to. Or, you can just not bring back Tevin Jenkins. Keontae Scott, another corner. He could be a slot for the Browns. And then Max Claire, tight end. I would feel pretty solid about this. Wouldn't be the most sexy rebuild. Still got questions to answer at quarterback. Maybe you trade one of these fifth-round picks for an Anthony Richardson or something like that. Oscar Del. I already took a tight end. Got to stay away from it. All right. Wide receiver, Ted Hurst. Bryce Lance is there. I'm pretty comfortable taking Bryce Lance here at 107. Kaylon's there. If Kaylon is there, when's my next pick? 144. He's probably not going to be there at 144, but if he is there at 144, I'll take him. Jacob Rodriguez is also here. Might consider that. So Jacob Rodriguez, Bryce Lance. Let's get Rodriguez here. Let's get a linebacker. And let's see if Kaylon or Bryce is there. Hopefully one of those two guys are here. So it looks like Kaylon just went. Nope, Kaylon's still up there. Looks like Bryce is still up here. Looks like I'm going to get one of them. All right. No and no. Both these suck. All right. So I got to pick at 144, 147. Let's go Kalon here. Reject and reject and reject. All right. And then let's go Bryce Lance. And then we're going to thug this out until, when's my next pick? 204. All right, let's start looking at punters. Is there any good punters out there? I don't know. I think this guy's worth a draft pick. What's a team fit for a fucking punter? They got these like little team fit here. So they're like, oh yeah, he's a team fit for the Vikings. Does that mean they have a need? Or is there like an offense you can run that fits one punter better than the other? And we're going to reject that, reject that, reject that, reject that, reject that. Yeah, I mean, we want to take the punter here? Let's take the fucking punter. Let's take Brett. All right, take the punter. Save some money. Get a cheap guy on the special teams. All right, so we're going to put scenario 2 on the whiteboard now. Now, this changes up a few things from scenario 1 based on how the draft went in this one, right? So Hickman no longer going to start here because you drafted Caleb Downs. Pons was not drafted here. We could erase these routes from these wide receivers as well. Yeah. Here. All right. So no Pons. Instead of Pons, what we have here is Caleb Downs. Now, Caleb Downs also going to help you on special teams. And then you still have Ione. You have that plan there. No Lomu because you couldn't get a trade back because you wanted to take Caleb Downs there. And then instead of Pons, who would you would have took in the second round? You don't got a second round pick because you traded for Brian Thomas Jr. and didn't trade back. You got Keontae Scott here, who also is a nice slot prospect. So Keontae Scott here at the slot. Still got Max Clare if you want it. Diabite probably on the bench. You're probably putting Jacob Rodriguez out there. So let's just put Jacob. All right, so Jacob here. Offensively, how much changes offensively? I don't really think much changes offensively in this scenario. Yeah, not much changes offensively. Brian Thomas Jr., Judy, offensive line. Jones is going to have to work out at right tackle until next year because you don't have a backup plan there. And then you're still probably rolling out Tillman. Yeah, you're still probably rolling out Tillman here, who I think can work with the better offensive line. Again, is this offense going to win any awards? Probably not. Take 12P off. That's back to 11P. Is this offense going to win any awards? Probably not, but this is serviceable. This is a good offensive line. You got Connor McGovern, a starter on a good team. You got Isaac Siamalu, who is, again, a starter on a over 500 team in Pittsburgh. You got Ione there to take over eventually. First-round prospect. Rasheed Walker, starting tackle there. Teller and Jones. You don't have as much injury insurance with this offensive line, but what you do have is a ton of insurance with your defense because this defense is insane. Got Myles Garrett, Mason Graham, Malik Collins, Alex Wright. You got Jacob Rodriguez, Carson Schlesinger, and Devin Bush. You got Keontae Scott in the slot, Denzel Ward, and Delpit. So you got a really nice secondary here. You can also imagine you can have Campbell out here, take off a linebacker. So let's take Jacob off the field. Let Delpit hover. Let's put Delpit at should I put Delpit at sub? Let's just have Delpit here. Well, actually, I think a better use of Delpit would be this. So have in this kind of a formation, you probably have Delpit top. And then you would roll Downs probably to the box. That's not an official formation, by the way. That's just me putting Downs where eventually I think he'll be in that play. And then you can have either Campbell on the outside. Let's put Campbell here. And then you would put Scott here. So you got a lot of flexibility. I mean, this is a defense that can win in coverage versus 11P, versus 12P, right? Check, check, check. If you want to go heavy, the Browns can match heavy here with can match 13 or 22, right? They can match all of these personnels, right? If you want to go 11, we got a match for 11. If you want to go 12, we'll take Scott off the field, keep Campbell out there, roll another linebacker out there, or we think we can win in nickel with this set 2 and 12P. 13P, you would just roll out the other linebacker there. That's with Devin Bush and Carson Schlesinger start to shine. You got Mason Graham. You can even roll out one of these secondary players, put in a extra defensive tackle. If you want to put a zero guard in there, you can. You can win versus 22 because you got the linebackers who can cover. You got the safeties who can cover. You can win versus every personnel with this group here. And that might be the attraction here with going after a corner and going after Caleb Downs. It's just make this defense foolproof. Get the offense to a place to where it can live, even if the quarterback play is mediocre, which you're hoping it's mediocre, by the way. It's not guaranteed to be mediocre. Last year, we have been far below mediocre the last couple of years. So hopefully we can get to mediocre. And you can kind of match these looks and go at teams, have the secondary to win 7-on-7, right? Have the front four to win 4-on-5 or 4-on-6. You got the front line there. And when you can win like that as a defense, you can win without having to be geniuses, right, schematically. So this is another one, right? Focus on the defense, build the defense out. Caleb Downs is going to be interesting to watch because he's the prospect that I don't think you can look at and say he's not worth the 6th overall pick. He's such a valuable piece to you. And when you consider, right, because I know people are going to go, Caleb Downs, he's a safety. Oh, how could you spend a high pick on a safety? He's not going to affect the team. But Caleb Downs does more than just be a safety, right? Caleb Downs is a leader. So he's going to be a tone setter for your secondary. He's also a returner, special teams guy. He's going to help you in return, so special teams here. He's going to help you special teams. He's also going to be able to be in the box. He could rotate to free. He could play a little slot. How is that guy not worth a high pick? Like, look at all the shit he can do. This isn't a situation where you're drafting somebody super limited here, right? Like, think about it like this. Baltimore. Kyle Hamilton, right? Kyle Hamilton, people overthought. Because Kyle Hamilton was a little slow. So people were like, well, he can't play free. But then you get him to Baltimore, he can play a little free. He's not a free, but he can play a little bit. What he really could do is slot. He could get on the line. By the way, let me add that to Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs could definitely help you on the line of scrimmage. He can get on the line. He can get in the box. That's worth a high draft pick right there. Kyle Hamilton. Caleb Downs potentially could do all that and return kicks. Yeah, he's worth a pick, dog. He would be worth the 6th pick. I get the argument with positional value sometimes, but you just got to ask yourself, is the guy good at football? You know what I mean? You could get positional value all you want, but do you think Caleb Downs is going to be a significantly better football player at his position than everybody else available? If the answer to that question is yes, then guess what? You got to draft Caleb Downs. Or you got to get a trade back to kind of equal out that value like they did last year with Travis Hunter. So that's where we are with that. Just wanted to put this on the whiteboard. Let me know if you want me to do more of this going forward. This was a little fun here. So just putting this down so you guys can see, because a lot of mock drafts, right, they'll give you suggestions, but they don't put it out on paper, or they don't factor in free agency, or they don't factor in how it would actually work. I try to do a little more than that and not just get caught up in the same old draft slop, So thank you guys for checking it out. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.